Burn Community Podcast, created by Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors, a leading nonprofit dedicated to supporting the burn community. In this podcast, we'll talk with burn survivors, share resources to help with supporting and improving burn recovery, and discuss how to prevent burn injuries. Here are your hosts, burn survivors and Phoenix Society's marketing team, Amber Wilcox and Rachel Kudlak.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a very special episode of Girls with Grafts. I am Rachel Kudlak. I'm one of the hosts of the show, and I'm joined today by my lovely co-host, Amber Wilcox.
Hi there. I love that I surprised you with that confetti. You didn't know that it was coming, so.
I know. I saw your comment that you added the background, and I was like, I don't know what she means, but no, I love the confetti. Like I said, it's a very special episode today.
Yes, Girls with Grafts is turning 100 today, so I'm super excited. And in celebration of that, we have lots of fun things to talk about today. Not only are we live, so bring in your comments. We are wanting this to be an interactive experience with everyone today. But in addition, we have a very special guest. But before we bring on our special guest, we would not have made it this far without our amazing sponsors. And today's podcast happens to be powered by Summit Fire Consulting, a national fire protection engineering and code consulting firm dedicated to helping people design and maintain complex buildings. Their team of experts interpret modern fire and building codes, design fire suppression, smoke management systems, assess risk, and ensure means of egress are safe in a wide variety of facilities, from healthcare, industrial, and historical buildings to stadiums and multifamily housing. Whew, that was a long one today, and you gave that one to me for that reason, right?
Yes, of course.
Well, I see she is ready to go, so let's go ahead and introduce today's very special guest. She is not a stranger to the podcast by any means. But Rachel, would you go ahead and give her a warm intro for us?
Yes. There's no one else we'd want to celebrate 100 episodes with other than Kechi. And so Kechi, as many of you know, is a Nigerian-born author and powerful singer. She's an inspirational and TEDx keynote speaker, MBA graduate, and bullying prevention advocate. Her dramatic story, as well as her impactful messages of resiliency and overcoming, combine powerfully to inspire personal and cultural transformation. And Kechi hopes to use her voice and her story to ignite hope all over the world within those that need it. So thank you so much, Kechi, for joining us today.
Hey, thank you guys so much. Congratulations on the 100th episode. Such a big deal. I'm so honored to be here.
Thank you so much, Kechi. Kechi, we're so excited to be celebrating such an important milestone. It's hard to believe that when Rachel and I talked about putting together a podcast just a few years ago, that we would be hitting 100 episodes. So I first wanted to reflect on like what it means to us to have 100 episodes. So Rachel, can you give me a little bit of kind of what this milestone means to you?
Yeah, no, it's actually crazy to think that this is our 100th episode. I would have never thought we would have made it this far when we first started. I was like, I remember Amber, you're like, let's just start a podcast. And I was like, okay, great. Like it's a great way to put out new content, share stories, hear from survivors and loved ones. But yeah, it's crazy to think back, and it doesn't even seem that long ago, but then at the same time it seems like forever ago that we started. I can't decide.
I know.
But
I know, and I don't even know in how many years, but I know it's at least before I had my son, and my son is 2 now. So I'm just very much like in awe of what we've been able to accomplish. And I know in particular, this podcast has reached far and wide. Rachel, you've shared that with me recently. We're in several countries, in addition to, being an opportunity for folks to not only just watch us online, but they can also listen to us from a hospital bed. And so the accessibility of this podcast, I think, is what really means a lot to me. And I know Rachel shares comments when they come in about how folks feel about the podcast. So that, obviously is something that always resonates with me is being able to just touch one person. And that was my hope, I think, by like wanting to start this. And yeah, here we are.
I know it's crazy. Cool. And it's like, I obviously work a lot with like our blogs and our resources on the website, and to think like, oh, putting out 100 blogs seems like so many, and now here we are putting out 100 episodes and celebrating with none other than Kechi, Kechi, I remember the first episode. I know you've been on a few times, so I remember the first time you came on, that was like such a big deal for Amber and I, because we were like, oh, we're Kechi as a guest, like,
and she wants to be on our podcast. Like, we're so honored, and we're so grateful that you've helped put a voice to this podcast.
Oh no, I'm happy to. It's an honor to, honestly. It's a part of like one of the things that I've always wanted to just do with my platform, reaching other burn survivors, conversing with burn survivors and revealing, just some things, in some conversations that would be very relatable to, people that have gone through what we've gone through. And so I'm always happy to partner with any group or anyone who is, feeling the same way, So yeah, it was a no-brainer to me, and it always is, because I'm just, that's the same. I have the same goal essentially with what you like, same as what you guys do. So when it aligns like that, it just, it's just perfect. So yeah.
Well, this podcast, it has come so very far. I think back to like episode 1 versions of Rachel and myself, and we were just babies that didn't know what we were doing. And honestly, we just wanted to put something out there to share stories and do it in a platform that was just out in the world and accessible. Support is a hard thing, especially like we were in the like kind of like just after COVID era, in which like people were starting to go in person, but it was so hard to still meet up. And it still is, right? We're all very busy, and sometimes I don't have time to go to my hospital, or like I'm a busy person, and sometimes joining right online in an accessible platform was something that I felt like we could do. So very excited for that.
Yeah, true.
So on today's episode, we're taking audience questions, or we're asking the audience questions. So we would love for you to answer them for us. So if you've been listening for a while, what was the moment that you realized this podcast mattered to you? And Rachel, if you want to share a little bit about that as well, I'd love to hear like when you realized that this was.
Well, and Amber, I know we've talked about this before, but you know, especially for me, like I am so far out from my burn injury, and sometimes I see the value of going to support groups or peer support chats, but sometimes I don't necessarily want it to be as heavy as that can be. And that's like my favorite part of the podcast is talking with survivors and caregivers and professionals of, and just like being more like casual and I don't know, like lighthearted. Um, and I know we'll dive into World Burn too, but like that's like part of why I love going, of like just seeing like friends and connecting. And like, yes, of course we talk about our burn injuries and our survivor stories, but it's also just like fun to like chit chat and yap with others in the community. Like at the end of the day, like we're all family, and it's just fun and easy, and I that's my favorite part.
I
That's
couldn't.
And I learn a lot, especially when we have like some of our fire service professionals on. I learn so many new things. And you would think, like, especially working for Phoenix Society, like I wouldn't, not that I know everything, but like you would know so much more. And I'm still learning every episode.
that's cool.
Absolutely. Well, Kechi,
Mm.
I want to catch up with you. I know, I'm sure a lot of the folks watching and listening right now know a lot about you, but let's talk a little bit about kind of how your life has evolved, you know, from, you know, thinking back to your accident and even just since you've been on the podcast initially, what's going on with you?
Yeah, honestly, yeah, wow, I mean, that's a very like weighty question because this year is the 20th anniversary of the accident that
Mm,
caused my burns. So it's a big milestone, and the date is December 10th. And I would have preferred to be back home in Nigeria for like anything that they were going to be planning, which they did have plans for something. And since I wasn't going to be able to make it, I was going to like record a video and join a Zoom and stand and all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, um, that doesn't even seem like it'll work out because there's a lot of political unrest back home.
Mm.
So
mm,
when they had things set in place to do some stuff to like to kind of like commemorate the milestone, but they had to cancel that last minute. So that also sucked. They're trying to still do like an online thing, but which I'm gonna still participate in. But it just that was kind of like sucky a little bit anyway. But so to this year is really meaningful. It's a big
mm,
deal. It's been 20 whole years, and
mm.
I was 16 when it happened, and I'm 36 now. A lot of life has
Wow.
happened in between.
Mm,
Most of it spent here in America, rebuilding essentially, not just me, my family as well. So, um, it's really incredible in my opinion, just the way that life has kind of transitioned, for me from the day the accident happened to now, the things I'm doing with my life now. And it just kind of makes me feel like I took the long way around to getting to what I've always kind of like wanted to do. Um, my interests in school, in high school, were talking a lot. So I did debate a lot, and then I also used to sing. I was, in the choir, and I used to do like my school would put on plays, and I was singing in like the musical types of plays. So these are two things that were hobbies, but never things that I thought that I would do beyond a hobby. Another thing was writing. While I was in college, in high school, I actually like wrote like a book, like a fictional book that was like an ongoing series type thing, and it was very popular, like with my friends, with my peers. And I remember like it was a whole thing. I even had like a whole language I invented at the back of the book. Like, I like had like my code for like different alphabets. It was a whole thing, and this was all while I was in high school instead of studying. But like that was one of my major things that I never, and I was bringing the book back home to my mom, but it was lost in the fire. So that sucked. But like those were three things that like, aside from like, school work, I was very interested in, and I never would have thought that anything would have come of them, aside from them being hobbies. So one reflection for me is like the fact that like somehow, even despite the accident happening, after the long road to recovery and rebuilding my life and getting, reintegrated with society and everything, moving to America, finishing high school, going to college, all that stuff, and somehow I still ended up doing those three things in my adult life, as like careers, essentially writing my book, about my journey, and singing, people asking me to come places to perform, and also people asking me to come places to speak. These are things that like tie directly to my first loves, essentially, when I was in school before the accident. So it's just really interesting how I feel like God kind of navigated me still to where he wanted me to be, to kind of like flourish, I suppose, in the talents that, I feel like, I've always, well, I the interests anyway that I've always had since I was a kid. So that's a very interesting thing, because I don't think 16-year-old Kechi would ever have thought that any of that those three things would ever amount to anything more than hobbies. So I'm just grateful that, I was able to find a way to enjoy those things and use them to reach people in different ways despite the accidents. That it really, really makes me very grateful. Another thing I would say is being able to use my degree as well, because honestly, it's this is like, and this is nothing to do with burns, but it's just the fact that like it's hard to find a job in this climate, especially since COVID. So anyone
Yes.
employed is like in a good position, and it's just like, I remember when I first graduated with my first degree out of college, my undergrad, it was tough. I couldn't find anything paid. I was doing mostly internships, and after a while I just had to go back into school and get my MBA, even though that's something you're technically supposed to do after you've worked a little bit, and then you go back to just make the MBA experience richer. It helps if you already have work experience, which I didn't have much of. So it was during that MBA time that AGT happened, right? And changed my whole life. Had to stop school halfway, go on hiatus with school. And then like 4 years later, after everything, during COVID is when like life slowed down with all the traveling, and it was like I have this thing that I didn't finish, and now I had time and no excuses to finish it, which was school. So I went back and finished my MBA during COVID, and at this point, years had passed where I'd been working and I'd met different people, I had networked, I had done so many things that I would not have. Who knows if I would have done them if I had just finished my MBA like on the regular track and come out with that. And then how would I have met all these people if AGC didn't cut in and happen? So it's like, in the end, I still got to have that MBA experience that was really enriching, because I went back in to finish it at a time when I had gone through so many different experiences and met different people, and now kind of understood more what I would actually want to do with an MBA if I should finish it. So it's just interesting how life works, honestly, because these like agency is obviously a huge thing that changed my life after the accident. And so it's just like, that show is a gift that keeps on giving, because it was not just about the fact that I was on the platform in the first place singing, but it's all the things that came as a result of it, all the things that I've built, the people I've met because of it. And I'm still reaping the rewards till today. So being able to understand how to be specific in what I wanted to learn with my MBA degree led to the job that I have today. So on the note of what I've been doing since we last talked, I started working in a corporate job in the Woodlands here in Texas for an infrastructure company that owns a bunch of different subsidiaries all across America. And I work in the corporate side for the main office on their digital marketing, their website management, and sustainability reporting as well. So the sustainability part is something I learned a lot about during that long stretch after AGT, where I was meeting different people and getting involved in different organizations. And I realized I love it, and I'm interested in it and understanding how it works and how companies can report it. So, I mean, it's just cool how that works out. And now I have a job where I'm like, literally using those things. So I'm just grateful today. I'm grateful for how everything just kind of came together in a way to, for good, essentially. And I'm hoping that, that can continue. So not to be too long-winded, but that's pretty much my reflection.
That is super exciting, and we'd love to hear that you're in like such a great place. I think it's like so empowering to, right, like learn the journey that you go on, right? Because I'm sure along the way it was never an easy one, right? Like things are never and I think people often forget, like they see what they see on social media, right? And then forget
the hard
Uh,
work that goes behind it, or like what it took
Mm-hmm.
for all the things that you're not seeing, basically all the things offline happening.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's just a big piece, I'm sure, of your journey still, and hearing, right? Like there is a time for things, but it does, like, you kind of have to go where your path takes you. And it sounds
That's
like that's
true.
happened just for you.
Thank you so much. I hope so. And I'm just grateful to be able to do all these things and to still have my platform as well, with people who actually care, following me, and caring about what I post and stuff. And I mean, the whole goal of the platforms in the first place is to um just share authenticity, despite differences,
Mm-hmm.
and wanting people to relate. I mean, I think people, that's a message like pretty much anyone can relate to in different ways, but that's more, it's very important for burn survivors, and
Mm-hmm.
every day is like what you said, about like hoping that you reach at least one person with your podcast. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. Every time I post something, every time I say something, I know I have an audience of at least burn survivors, and it matters how I put myself out there and what I say. And so, if even one person watching a video I post or hearing me speak or a picture they see inspires them in one small way, whether it's to not maybe wear short sleeves today, or I love singing, I thought I couldn't because I have these scars, maybe I should try it, or whatever it is that they can relate to. If even one person takes something out of anything I put out there in the digital world, then I feel like it makes me feel like I'm fulfilling what I'm supposed to do. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really, yeah, so all of it really, that's all it comes down to really in the end, is that impact I'm trying to have.
Well, speaking of community gatherings, it looks like we've got a shout out by someone that was able to meet you last month.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
so they're very excited. And speaking of that, I want to hear how World Burn was.
Oh,
I've heard that you made a special singing appearance,
yes,
first
I
of all.
did.
But how you, from both of you, how was World Burn?
Oh my gosh, it was cool. It was really, really, it was fun. I mean, I think this is the first time that my mom and I have stayed for the entire thing. I think we've popped in and out for a few days or one day even. I think last one I went to was in 2018, and we only popped in for one day because I had to be somewhere else the next day or something like that. But this is the first time, and also for the one I did, my very first one in 2009. I only attended one day as well. So, but this was my first time going for the being there for the entire thing, and it was really, really heartwarming. It was really, really wonderful to see so many of us, that have this shared experience in one way or the other, that, we meet, and then it was like a huge community, like, meeting of like people who have kind of like, always been kind of interacting online, but now, we get this chance to see each other in person, and not just in a place where for once you don't have to explain anything about why you look the way you are. I don't have to be worried about anyone staring. You don't have to be worried about you know um just feeling like you need to, I guess, explain your existence, if that makes sense. It's just kind of like you just exist, you're just there in that space with people that understand just innately without having to say anything. So it allows for a lot more conversations to happen outside of this shared experience we've had, which is ironic because we're all here because it's called World Burn. But a lot of times I feel like just the interactions are, they don't have to be about the burns. And I think that's what's really cool. But then also there's the fact that being World Burn, there's all these different like sessions that I just felt like were so thoughtful and so meaningful for a lot of people that attended. I heard from a lot of people like great feedback about the different sessions, especially the makeup one for the girls, and then also for the jewelry one. I thought that was really beautiful, where they could like have wear jewelry that had like this their scar imprint. I mean, that was like a girl was talking to me about it and started like crying. Like it's just, these things were just so thoughtfully put together, and there's the Film Society is always really good about listening to the feedback people give, and applying what they can to the next world burn. And I feel like I saw that a lot this year as well. So yeah, it was a really impactful experience. Even my mom, she felt like so at some point she felt like she wasn't really ready. She didn't realize she wasn't ready to experience certain things. So she was like, this is crazy. I didn't expect to like get in my feelings, because because so she's like,
That's so
do I have some
sweet.
stuff to unpack? So have I not unpacked everything? So there's moments where I like realize like maybe I haven't unpacked some stuff,
Mm.
and yeah. So I think it was just really cool and cathartic too. I had a good time. I was able to speak, and then also able to sing, and lots of people sang as well. It was just fun. It was fun, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I look forward to Grand Rapids, definitely.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Speaking of celebrations, that'll be our 50th
Yes, like
celebration for Phoenix Society in
uh-huh.
2027. So
That's so cool.
we'll be having some more confetti in 2 weeks
Confetti
there
all around.
too.
Very true.
But yeah, I
Absolutely.
know, Kechi, I know you opened the talent show and you did absolutely amazing, but
Thank
the,
you.
the talent show was more packed than I've ever seen it. And I
Really?
couldn't believe how many amazing, we always have a great show, but
Yeah.
we had a jam-packed, amazing crew of, survivors sharing, singing, poetry, instruments, all
Yeah.
of the above.
Comedy
It
What was
was
even. It
your
was
favorite?
cool.
Do you have a favorite act from the talent show?
Do you have one, Rachel?
There was a young boy that went up and did some
The
jokes.
comedian? Yes.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
was cute.
he was so cute, and I loved it because and especially being, a child burn survivor, like I wasn't giving jokes, but like my parents, I shouldn't say forced me, but encouraged me and took me to like public speaking opportunities to share my story. And it's like, I love just seeing like the confidence of a little kid getting up there
Getting
and
up
sharing
there.
his jokes. And I'm like, yes, he's probably gonna have some tough days, but like though, like that confidence that his parents and caregivers are instilling in him at
Yes.
such a young
Awesome.
age
I
is so
agree.
important.
Yeah, very
Mhm.
true. I think mine was
Mm.
definitely the guy that was also the guy that also told jokes.
Yep.
He was very funny, and I really enjoy, like, I guess you could say, dark humor. For
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, I like people that like can, because he's obviously, it's I still have a lot of moments in my life where I crack jokes with people I feel like at this point should be comfortable with me cracking self-deprecating, maybe not self-deprecating, but jokes about my burns at least. And I still have people who are like, too soon. No, like it's never too soon.
No,
I've
Every once in a
cracked
while,
jokes to
it
my
happens.
husband. Yeah, sometimes it accidentally slips out, right? And
Like literally, sometimes
my
it's just like it's
yeah,
low hanging fruit. So it's
yes.
just
And my
so it
husband's
was
like,
fun.
no, that will never be okay. And I'm like, but it's funny,
Yeah,
right?
me
Like,
too. It's just
yeah,
funny. It's funny. My
yeah,
sister, she's
yeah.
just like, every time I do something, she's like, no.
I
yeah.
tell this story all the
I'm like,
time, and to
girl.
this day, my husband is hard. I was burned with hot caramel, and in the hospital, he went down into the cafeteria one day and went to get me a chocolate cookie or some kind of sweet. And I'll never forget, he came back up into the room and handed it to me. And I don't even think like that the thought crossed his mind, but I said, "Oh, it's interesting looking. Like, what kind is it?" And like his face just got white. And I said, "What's wrong?" Like thinking I'm about to eat something that like had something seriously wrong with it.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's a caramel crunch.
Oh my God.
And I'll never forget, like I died laughing like that. I was hysterical, right? Even in the hospital bed, like,
he
and my
thought
poor
you was like
husband.
hearing caramel would like trigger your
Yes. And my poor husband at the time was just like, oh my God, what did I do? And I was like, it's really okay. And to this day, like anytime caramel is brought up, like it is
it's like a thing.
it's a thing, but it is like one of the, like he was white as a ghost that day. And I remember him being like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's fine. Like it's not a big deal. It's kind of funny, but we do make the caramel jokes around this house.
Oh yeah. It's just I make jokes all the I'm
No.
always making jokes, and like
Yeah.
my mom is just it doesn't make her feel a type of way, but she's just like, why would you?
Yeah.
Oh God. So yeah. It was fun to have him doing jokes like that, just
Good.
because we can all relate, all of us in the room, and it's like the perfect audience for something, in my opinion, at least. So
Mhm.
so yeah, it was cool. I liked it. And also it kind of shows, there's a level you get. Not everyone might be there, but you do. It might take a bit to get to that point where you can joke about it. It's not
Mhm.
always something that, I mean, obviously when it was fresh for me, for any of us, no one was smiling, but at some point you get to a point where it's like, you can make some jokes or whatever about it if you want, but also the audience matters. So it's not
Mhm.
everyone that's comfortable with that. So yeah. So I did like that. That was fun.
I will say, I think even though, right, there has been so many positive things, I'm sure, Kechi, I'm sure also having such a social and public platform, you've gotten both, right? Like, I don't think the internet is always the kindest to anyone,
I
Yeah.
agree.
right?
Yep.
Could you talk for a moment about like what, right? Like, how do you handle those experiences if and when they happen? I'm sure, like, especially right after AGT, I'm sure you had
Oh yeah.
thousands and thousands of comments, and I'm sure not all of them were good. Folks,
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately, we're human, and we say things sometimes we shouldn't.
True.
How do you handle that when that happens?
So my approach to like any online bullying or
Mm-hmm.
hate or whatever it is my number one, honestly, my number one is really to not like, I wouldn't say ignore, but it's really also because it's also being careful with what I consume as well. Not learning to not be so obsessed with looking through comments, honestly,
Mhm.
because when the
It's
more
fair.
you look, then you will eventually find that one you're looking for, that nasty one. So I've cultivated the discipline to not even like like when I post, I will come back and scan it and respond to a few, like the first 10 I see or something, to interact, engage with it and all that in the comment section. That's important for like, just engagement in general, so that's good. So I do that, but I'm not going to scroll all the way to the end of the just looking through to see what people are saying, because another thing is, when I'm posting because I want to. I'm not posting because I'm looking for um validation from what people feel about the post, if that makes sense. So in other words, I don't need comments to deter me from posting, because what I'm aware of the responsibility I have with my platform. I don't believe I can afford to no longer use my social platform because of the impact I know it has on a lot of burn survivors. I I'm the one that started making this platform what it is, and so I have a responsibility to continue to keep it that way and develop it that way. So I don't need things to deter me from that mission, essentially. And that's something that comments have the power to do. You can, I mean, no, I feel like I'm pretty tough, but at the end of the day, like you said, we're human. You don't know what it is that you might see and when that could rock your whole world and make you start thinking things about yourself that aren't true, and affect whether or not you want to post certain things. I don't want to have to start obsessing over things like that.
Mhm.
So I have a bunch of different strategies. The first one is ignore, because
Mm.
I also don't want to give them any power. I don't want them
Mhm.
to feel important. I don't want nasty commenters to feel empowered by my attention, because that's what fuels people like that. If you're the kind of person that likes to leave nasty comments online, that attention from the person that you're saying those nasty things about is what will fuel you to continue and give you that feeling like you've achieved, like, yay, I affected her. They don't need to get that from me, so I'm not going to give them that. However, I would say that there's a caveat to that, because sometimes if it's something that they say that is not necessarily hurtful to just to me specifically, but a general assumption about beauty standards, or burn survivors, or just how you treat people, how you talk. Like, there's just some things, like, sometimes I have to set the record straight on, like, this is not how burn survivors are. This is not what it means to be burn survivor, or just, this is not the right approach to things. So I'm very picky about what I've done that maybe twice, addressed specific comments where it's like, someone said this, and I have to say this. That's happened maybe twice since AGT. And I remember the two things. It was very important. One was about beauty standards, and the other one was an assumption someone made about how like skin grafts work and how they look and
Mm.
how they look weird and how, yeah. So I wanted to, I kind of, it was more like a informative, that second one. So it depends, but most of the time I really ignore. I don't even block or delete the comment, because I wanted to
Mhm.
sit there. You let it sit there so people can see what you had the
The
guts to say.
ignorance.
I'm
Yeah.
not gonna I don't delete them. I don't say anything. If eventually maybe something could happen and my friends will tell me like, yeah, we reported a comment, it's gone. So sometimes I wouldn't even know. I won't even see it before
Mm.
it's gone, you know? So yeah, there's like, I remember there was a thing that may have happened in like 23 or something, 2023. And apparently a Nigerian like blogger lady had said something weird about me, like on Twitter. And by the time it came to me, it was already handled. Like by
Mm.
the time I realized it, my friends, my family, other like my followers had already like laid into this person, and she
Yeah.
took out the post. She apparently deleted. I never saw what that was. I never saw it. So there's also that. That also happens too sometimes where I don't even
Yeah.
encounter the
See
thing.
it.
Yeah. So those are like a few of the things of how I deal with that. Like I ignore it most of the time. I don't
Mm.
block. I don't report. I just, you felt like you could say that, so just I'll leave it there. Let everyone
Right.
see what you
Right.
said. That's cool. And then another one is
Mhm.
sometimes I would address it if it's very serious.
Mm.
Most of the time I don't. Most of the time I don't, and I don't go looking for. I don't go through scrolling through comments. I don't do
Mm.
that. I
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't do that. So yeah,
Mm.
I,
Yeah. No, I think that's such good advice. And, I know this is so much easier said than done, but, for the survivors listening who, aren't an influencer, but like maybe a friend or someone that, well, not a friend, but someone that they know may say something mean or whatever. It's just,
mm,
you really do have to surround yourself with the right people. And like I said, I
it's
know that's so much easier said than done,
yeah,
but it's you don't need that negative energy in your life. And if someone, and I totally agree with what you're saying of like, don't give the other person power
no,
in this situation. Like
yeah,
then they win, and that
exactly.
doesn't help anyone.
And you nope,
um
I
yeah.
agree fully. Yeah. And it's online is much, in my opinion at least, it's a little easier to deal with than if you were faced directly with a
Mm-hmm.
person who's like bullying you in person. And I know
Yep.
people go through that. I've experienced like negative reactions specifically with my burns, like a few, maybe I can 99.9% is positive. I haven't really had a lot of actual in-person experiences that are negative when it comes to my burns, and I'm grateful for that. But that's one of my best friends.
She said she's got you.
Always ready. She's talking about the
The
thing I just
comments.
told y'all about
Yeah.
the person that, yeah.
She's waiting. Yeah.
She was one of the people that were like, yeah, they handled everything. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like, yeah. So like in person, it's a little more difficult, I think, because then the person is bold enough to like actually say it to your face, and then it's like, how do you handle that? That's a little different. And I haven't had a lot of experience with that, honestly. But my hope is that if that happens, that I would be able to actually address it in that instance as well, and do it in the right way where it's like not, you know, treating insults, but more making them feel like what they said was really dumb. Like that would be my goal. It's like why would you like kind of make them see in real time that it doesn't benefit anyone to be nasty, and to
Mm-mm.
be a bully. Like it's weird. You don't like why would you? So it's just I don't know. I don't know how I feel like it's much more difficult to handle in person.
Mm.
And I know that, especially for kid burn survivors, they probably deal with that a lot, especially with school and kids just no filter and just like yeah, but I would hope that, um in that instance, they would have like already a kind of foundation of a support system that would help them to
Mm-hmm.
see beyond those things and like ignore those kinds of things and not internalize those comments or those things that people say, because people can say whatever they want truly, but it's the way that you react to it or the way they let it make you feel that really matters. And I would love for any burn survivor encountering any nasty person to be in a place where they have a support system that validates their identity as they are, understanding that how they look and what they've gone through does not define them, does not diminish their worth. You know, that's a message that I feel like I really hope all burn survivors internalize. And I think that
Mhm.
internalizing that would help counter whatever it is that you hear from a person that's nasty, like in real life. So
For sure. When I know, Amber, one of your previous audience questions was, you know, what's one thing you learned about your scars are healing from listening to the show? And, you know, for me, it's kind of exactly what we're just talking about. Like, we go through a lot of hard stuff, but at the end of the day, like, there's so much, like, it's so much more rewarding. It can be. It takes a while to get there, but like one thing I've learned about myself is, you know, I didn't used to think I was very confident, and some days I still really struggle with that, but like this show and talking to survivors like does help build like my own confidence of like there are other survivors who are going through the same thing or have already overcome this, you know, problem I'm having. And, you know, I think it's, yeah, just why like the community is so important, and surrounding yourself with the people who support you, like your friend in the comments, and, you know, building up that
yeah,
community behind you.
yeah, true.
There is quite the community here, and we've definitely seen that, right? Like with all of, I think of 100 episodes, that's at least 100 guests, right? And so, and sometimes
Yes,
we've
that's
doubled
true.
up. Do you have a favorite episode? I can think of quite a few of like my favorite episodes, and sometimes we'll get off and both be like, wow, that was just like, either we've learned something really special, or we've had like a very like heart-wrenching moment, or like, right, there have been episodes that have been like very heavy for everyone, and then there's episodes that are like fun and exciting. I think back to like our episode with our the wig specialist, like they were so fun, and we had the best time on that episode because we just really had like, we laughed the entire time. And then there's other episodes in which like we cover a very heavy topic or discuss something like incredibly new and traumatic, right? Like we've talked to survivors from all ranges, all ages. We've had some young kids on the show. But with that said, Rachel, do you have like one that sticks out to you in particular? I know I have a couple, but I'll let you go first.
No, yeah, I also have a few. I mean, obviously, whenever we have Kechi, I'm not just saying this because you're here, but Kechi or like JR on, it's always so
JR
much
is
fun.
always fun as well. Yes, Kechi, we always
Yeah.
have a good time. I know when you joined,
Yeah.
before we started the live, I was like, I'm not worried about. I mean, we always worry, right? Like I feel like Rachel and I, because the podcasts are so unpredictable, because we have guests on, we like don't know what turn it's going to take. Like for people that think we've scripted this, we truly have not. Like we have a couple of questions in the background that we like have prepared, but most of our guests, one, don't know what we're going to ask or say, and then like a lot of the time like, things take a turn that we weren't expecting. So there is a level of like unpredictability, and if you've not had the guest on the show before, like it's like, is there going to be a level of chemistry there? Like, are we going to have fun?
Yeah.
And so it is like very unpredictable. And there's episodes I feel like, Rachel, you and I get off and they're like, oh, okay. And then there's other times where we're like, I didn't see that coming, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like every time it changes.
Yeah. What are some of your favorites, Amber?
Immediately, like when I started thinking about this question, I can't say her last name, but do you remember Amber? Like I remember her name because it was mine. She was struck by lightning in Washington, D.C. while she was like, yeah, and she was the only survivor, and she just happened to be standing by a tree. And it was from the tree that she got the impact. And that one has stuck with me for a very long time, I think, because it was such an untraditional, and I say traditional in a sense that like, you know, a lot of burn injuries are untraditional, but this was truly like something that is a freak accident.
That's unique.
Yes. And I remember her account like very vividly because I truly like it stuck with me. And to this day, I think it like has put that extra fear of like anytime there's a storm or anything, like anytime you have an episode where you're like, I remember any of those are also very hard hitting. I'll never forget, because I continue this day to like when we had NFPA on and they were talking about the exits and like fire codes, that continues to always hit hard for me. I feel like there are anytime where I can walk away and go, okay, like this is a way I can make my house safer. I feel like anytime we have NFPA on, I always like immediately go into my husband's room and be like, we need to change the smoke alarms. The tech one this season, or was that last season or this season, where we talked about, I think it was this season, right? We talked about like electrical cords. So anytime there's like something as it pertains to like everyday life, I feel like I'm always into learning. So like those have always hit hard. We've had so many, but I really think like there's some that like have really impacted me. And then I think the podcast goes both ways, right? I know there's other episodes that have truly like impacted the person we're interviewing as well. But I always like my favorites are the ones where I like walk away having learned something new.
Makes sense.
And that's always like my favorite. But with that, we're not done. 100 episodes isn't the end. So we want to know what topics haven't we covered yet that we should? What are
and who? If folks who there's certain guests, whether they're a survivor, a doctor. I always love having the doctors on too.
Exactly.
I guess it might have been earlier this year. I don't know. All the episodes and seasons blur together. Yeah. But when we had like Dr. Mendenhall on,
is that the hand specialist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we always ask, and there was another one we just had. I feel like you and I asked I think I asked Dr. Mendenhall like a series of very invasive questions about hand surgery. But I like always need to know like exactly what happened. So it's very interesting.
What's the doctor's name? Because I'm actually like I might reach out, because I like this is another thing actually, like why like sometimes I'm really grateful for I'm grateful for the podcast, but like really like when you're talking about learning from people and stuff, I also learn like I as a listener, and then also whenever I come on, learn things too, like that actually can be helpful in my life currently, so it's so interesting because I actually literally I'm looking for a hand specialist right now.
That's hilarious.
That's actually like I'm literally, because I'm having some issues with like the pins that they put in my hands.
Yes.
And it's one of them seems to be shifting. Something's going on. It's poking. Something is poking a nerve. It's poking like, and there's a part of my hand, my finger that keeps like bleeding random. Just basically something's going on in there, and I need to figure it out. And the only person that can is someone that would be familiar with my situation. So a hand specialist, you say?
He's a peds hand specialist, but I will tell you, it was last season. It was not this season. I thought it was, but I follow him because it's Peds Hand Doc is his Instagram handle.
He has Instagram, cool. Okay. And you might know someone that can help me at least or something. So
it's PEDS Hand Doc. He wasn't on this season. He must have been on last. Rachel, I agree with you.
Yeah,
and we'll have to link his podcast in the show notes as well. But yes, he. For sure. If you listen to that episode, there's a series of invasive questions that I ask him about hand surgery, like missing appendages, all of the above. So
that's cool. What episode? Do you know what title? What episode number is that?
Let me look.
Rachel, and find out.
It came out February 18th of this year. It's called a Healing Hands Pediatric Burn Care and Reconstructive Surgery.
I'll just search Healing Hands and see what comes up.
Yeah, it's always funny, especially when we have even like any like professional, whether burn care, fire service, or whatever. And like I said, I feel like we should be the experts on some of these things. And then I'm like, what is surgery?
Or like Rachel laughed because I do remember being like, I asked him some very like gory questions. Like, if I lose a finger, what do you do? And he literally like goes through it on the podcast.
On the podcast. That's cool.
Yep.
That's cool.
It was definitely a great episode.
And I'll make sure that episode and Instagram and his Instagram are linked in our show notes too once we're done. So
yeah, Dr. Mendenhall will thank us for his surge.
Sorry for sorry for the influx of messages you're about to get.
Well, I know we got about 10 minutes left, so we can just cover some like maybe fun and personal things in the last few minutes. I guess, Rachel, do you have a favorite moment on the podcast? Or one of the questions that I was prompted was who has cried in the most episodes? I don't know that I think there's been a couple where we've gotten close, but I think I've held it together pretty well.
I do not like crying in front of people, so I will get teary-eyed on this show often. And then I just, I hold it in because
I see.
I like privacy when I cry. So, and it's actually funny. I teared up at World Burn this year, but this was my first World Burn that I didn't have a crash out at some point. So that was a win for me. It always happens. I can't help it. But yeah, I like to cry in private.
I can say that we have. Rachel, what does your husband and the and the rest of your family think about your podcasting?
Well, both my parents love it. I know my dad's always listening. My mom will tune in, and they're always funny too because. Okay, spoiler alert. We are live today, but we're not always live, even when it says live. And my parents get very confused sometimes by that.
Mom and Dad is live for real right now.
Yes, actually live. But no, they all love it. But sometimes I shouldn't say I get embarrassed, but you ever when you listen to the sound of your voice and you're like,
you're like, oh, yeah, sound like that.
Yeah, and people are like, oh, I'm listening or I'm watching. I'm like, oh, I don't
know.
like. I'm happy you are.
Yeah.
Can you not? And Remy's, I know he poked over here. Now he's sleeping like a baby.
Remy was very happy to join in. I was very pleased for him.
Yeah. But what about you, Amber? What does Tyler and everyone think about the pod?
It's funny because before the show today, I was like, it's our 100th episode. We're super excited. And for people that know Tyler, Tyler's always been supportive since day one. He was definitely the hero, I think, of my accident, right? Like from, taking me home. I think way before I was ready to get home and really doing the brunt of the work. But he was like, look how far you guys have come from even just 100 episodes is something that we should be very proud of because we would have never imagined that we would be here, right, in such a short time. And so my husband is just the most supportive person in the world. And it's, always a joy to have him there to support me. I think in other walks of life, sometimes, and this is no offense to this podcast, I forget that I have a podcast. So sometimes I'll have someone say hey, I listened to your latest episode. And I'm like, of what? Right? I don't, I think because, and a lot of coworkers, I'm remote and I've been remote for a really long time. So they don't see me from the waist down. So when I do drop I always say the burn injury bomb, when I do tell them that I've had a burn injury, they're like, a what? And even with folks that may have not seen me with shorts on or whatnot, a lot of the time I feel like they don't even realize that I have one. And this is something I do very quietly, right? I don't talk about it that often. So I do think it's something where I sometimes forget, right? That I'm that we're still doing this and we're still being able to put these episodes out in the world. And so I'm just so grateful that I still have this opportunity to hopefully make an impact. And speaking of impact, today is Giving Tuesday. And so if you haven't had the opportunity, I'm sure Phoenix Society would love your support today and every day, but special shout out to Giving Tuesday.
And Giving Tuesday too can be so much more than just, I know obviously financial gifts are important, especially as a nonprofit, but sharing this podcast, sharing your story with us, giving us a like can be a simple way to give back. It doesn't always have to be a monetary donation either. I think, sometimes we forget that you can sharing your voice, sharing your story, like I said, even sharing this podcast can help others find us. And help others understand more about the burn survivor community.
Yeah, you never know what sharing, especially like I know for burn survivors it's one, but if you have a friend or a family member, like I know that sometimes, and I learned this from my own injury after I started sharing my story on social media. Within like a week, I had like 4 different people that were like, I had someone I knew who had this burn injury, or my dad grew up with it. I never truly understood. And I think like it's something we don't talk about that often. And so maybe sharing this podcast will reach one more person that may not know how to ask for help or has never really had the opportunity to seek out some support. Yes. So it will go a long way to have you support by sharing, or at least telling someone else about it.
Definitely.
And with that, there is a Giving Tuesday campaign. We've just dropped the URL down in the comments. We would love it if you could continue to support not only Girls with Grafts, but the Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors with a donation, or like Rachel said, even just a share of this podcast would go a long way.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm also adding to another link in there too to share your story with us, whether you want to share some reflections about the podcast. We'd love to hear it, or give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube. Give us some love.
I know we're up there in some 5-star reviews. I'm always very excited to see it, so we'd love to get a review from you. And I know we are coming up on time, but before we end today's podcast, Kechi, I'm going to turn it over to you. What is one thing I feel like I want to hear from you that you've learned from all the conversations with Girls with Grafts over the last couple of episodes, or anything else you want to share with everyone?
I mean, one thing I've learned, I guess, here would be, first of all, the fact that there's like just the fact that there's a podcast, run by burn survivors for other burn survivors and other people who might be listening. I think that feels like a whole, not necessarily a whole, but like it kind of it feels another like part of media, like digital media, like being put out there for more burn survivors to know about the burn community in general. Just one more way to reach more burn survivors. And I really, really like that. I feel like that's the entire goal of this podcast. And by learning about y'all and listening to y'all, learning about the Phoenix Society of Burn Survivors, which is just this giant resource of information for burn survivors, and for them to not just a resource, but a gateway to a community that they might not have ever heard of or known about if they had never heard about Girls with Grafts. So I really like the fact that you guys are putting these episodes out there, and then the meaningful the way, the meaning that all the episodes have, the intentionality with the guests, and the episodes and the different areas that you cover when it comes to burns, not just the physical burns, but the mental part of dealing with it, finding your confidence again after the burns, understanding that your identity goes beyond your scars. These are all episodes that you guys have had, and then you have guests that are doctors, also other like burn survivors, and then you also have episodes with caregivers of burn survivors, like really trying to go into all the different facets of what it means to life after the burn, essentially. So I really appreciate, just in general, the fact that you guys try to cover all these different areas when it comes to burns. I feel like there's an episode for everyone. That's how I feel. And obviously there's going to be more to come. You guys have covered a lot already, to be very honest.
We have
a lot. So yeah. Yes. I mean, I feel like as time passes, I don't know how you get your inspiration for episodes, but like, I guess, it's just it just goes to show we're at 100. There's so much ground to cover, and there's
So much to talk about.
so many more perspectives to get. I remember one episode that I think it was my first one, was when I learned a lot about what other people have been doing in terms of dealing with the itching with scars, and then also with just taking care of the scars like post burn. And I had been doing the same thing up until that point for all those years, like almost 10 years. And I was doing the same thing, and results were like getting, kind of like they were getting less and less. And I was in a pretty bad place in that regard at the time of that episode. And I learned about so many new products, so many new things. And that was the day that I also realized that I was not taking advantage of the resource that the Phoenix Society is as a burn survivor, because I had spent so much of my time, getting back out into the world and feeling like, yeah, I'm good, I'm okay. I know I'm pretty, like, whatever Shriners told me is probably what's still going on. I'm nothing new, like, thinking everything is, but meanwhile, there's so many things that people have brought out to help burn survivors that I wasn't even aware of. And I learned so much that day. And it just made me learn. So I wrote down the products that people talked about, but then I also started being much more involved in the Phoenix Society. So reading the newsletters and keeping track of the things that are happening, and going through the website and just like seeing what's on there. Because I was like, I feel like I've been like a ostrich, like head in the sand, just not taking advantage of what I have, so that was that was an eye-opening episode for me, because I realized these things are like, first of all, there's a podcast, and then like and then there's all this information I wasn't even aware. That's crazy. So I really delved deeper in there. That's how I got in touch with because Amy's always kept in touch with me, but then I learned about SOAR, and then obviously the podcast, and then as time passed, when there was this research thing for burn survivors, it was because I was keeping in touch with Amy that I was able to learn about that as well and be involved in that. So, it's just all these different things, and it all really started from that very first episode that y'all invited me to. So I feel like before that, I wasn't as involved. I wasn't
I think.
Well, it wouldn't. Yeah, I was gonna say it wouldn't be a podcast episode without some technical. Yeah.
Well, while we wait for Kechi to return to us, Rachel, what is one thing you feel like you're most proud of for Girls with Grafts as we close out today?
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, I'm honestly, like I said, so proud that we're at 100 episodes. Like, if you would ask me to work on 100 different blogs for the website, I would be like, yeah, I need years for that. And yes, we've gotten here over years, but it's like crazy to think that we put out 100 different episodes. So I'm really proud of that, and I'm really proud of just like us and how much like we've both, all the hard work we put in.
Guys, my Wi-Fi, my lights, they literally just like the light just flickered off and on. Like, so the light, I don't know why we just lost power, like very briefly. And so everything just went off. My bad.
Oh no.
I was like, oh God. Yeah, that's what happened. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, I was pretty much done anyway, so it's cool. I was good. I was rambling anyway, so anyway, yeah. I learned a lot. All that to say, I learned a lot, and I'm grateful, and I hope for success of Girls with Grafts, and I hope that y'all have 100 more episodes, and always looking forward to learning more from you guys and from your episodes. So keep up the good work, and congrats again. So yeah.
Thanks, Kechi. We'll let you go while we end out the podcast, but thanks again, Kechi.
All right. Bye, guys. Officially, bye.
Well, it was great having Kechi on the show. Rachel, so tell me that one thing that you're super proud of. Let's hear it.
I'm going to be a little like selfish about this, but I'm actually really proud of like how far and how much I've learned about myself by doing the podcast. Like, I mentioned, like, obviously I'm so far out from my burn injury, but there's always more healing that you can go on and go through. And this has just been really eye-opening for me in like a great way of like, oh, maybe I do need to unpack to this area a little bit more. And like I said, it's helped build my confidence in a really, I don't know if that's strange or not, but it's made me more confident. Maybe it's just because I'm talking about my injury more than I normally would be. But yeah, what about you?
I would say I'm definitely proud of just, we were just two girls that believed there needed to be more of a voice out in the community. And I'm always so proud of where you've come, but also like knowing that we've built this thing that's really cool and it's really fun to share with the world. And even though it can be really heavy at times, like we do have a really good time on the show, and there is literally no one else in the world I would rather do it with. So also like special shout out to you for continuing to like hold the fort down for us, and really just continuing something very, very special, and will always be very special no matter what. So yes. Very, very excited for more.
I'm going to be sappy for a quick moment before we close out, but I totally agree. I am like so thankful for the friendship that we've built over this. And I know, you've seen me on some really tough days, and I know you understand and you get it. And I just really, really appreciate, our friendship. And I mean, that's part of the reason why we're still doing it, is I have fun doing these with you. And if it wasn't fun, we wouldn't be at 100 episodes.
No. And again, yes, we have tough days, but I think it's also important to remember, like, we don't always get to see each other anymore, right? Like we used to work together every single day. And since I've left the Phoenix Society, like this is my opportunity to catch up with you too. So a lot of what people are hearing is just genuine conversation of us getting to catch up in each other's lives as well. So it's always been a pleasure. Will continue to be a pleasure. And want to thank our audience because we couldn't do it without you listening. So if there's something that you want to share with us about what you want us to do, or who you want us to have on the show, or any exciting updates that you want from us, send this podcast to someone you know, and hopefully it will touch one other life today. And so we thank you for that. Encourage everyone to continue to be kind. And with that, it's been a pleasure, Rachel. We will see you on the next episode of Girls with Grafts.
Yeah, here's to another 100.
Here's to another 100. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Girls with Grafts. If you are enjoying this content, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.